It's not news to anyone that I think that TikTok's favorite dark romance, Butcher and Blackbird, is a bad book. But I think there could be a version of it that I like. So I saw my local book club was reading this dark romance, also about murder, and I'm like, gee, that looks awfully familiar. Hi, my name's Rachel, and today we are once again reading BOOKTOK's favorite dark romances with murders in them. The book of the day is Lights Out by Nevessa Allen, and this one isn't about serial killers like Butcher and Blackbird. It's about a serial killer's son, who is a guy on Mask Talk, which if you don't know that, allow me to introduce you. So it's about a guy like that and the nurse that he breaks into the home of. We got a lot to get into today. This has some striking similarities to Butcher and Blackbird. Murder being family business. The covers look oddly similar in like what we're doing, and also the neon and black. And even the trigger warnings have oddly specific parallels. So let's compare these books today. Outside of the problematic content I often see in books, certainly Butcher and Blackbird. One of the things about dark romance that I seem to have a hard time with that leads me to not enjoying many of them that I read is it leans so hard into being a fantasy that the authors don't seem to be writing characters that feel like real people. And since these types of books are such character-focused stories, that's pretty important to nail. This is something I've learned a lot about by using today's sponsor, which is Skillshare. Skillshare has this excellent class by my favorite author, Saba Tahir. It is back to school season. It is fall into learning how to write better character season. And what better teacher is there? Saba's Skillshare class on how to build a believable character is so phenomenal. She teaches you how to write believable characters by getting in your character's head. Now, she typically writes fantasy with the exception of one contemporary, but this is advice that can be used for any book. You write a more believable character by getting into your character's head via an interview. You should know your character so well, and by the end of your book, your audience should know your character so well that they should be able to ask like interview questions of them. She teaches you how to prep for this, figure out your character's defining attributes, how to conduct the interview, and then how to use this interview in your writing. And it really does make for writing authentic characters who exist outside of a story. And it's not just for writing. This class has been so helpful to me in being a better reviewer. But Skillshare is not just for writing and reviewing. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives. They have a wide variety of topics: video editing, graphic design, cooking, illustration, planning, marketing. But they do have tons of writing classes with authors like Benjamin Percy, Kirsten White, Daniel Jose Older. Using these classes has helped me understand story structure more, understand the creative process that goes behind creating a story with believable characters who stay with you, and this helps me write better reviews. Skillshare is an online platform, and it has stackable lessons so that members can learn at their own pace. No matter what your current skill level is, whether you want to finish that manuscript you've been working on for far too long, or you want to learn how to even do parts of my job like editing videos, or you want to use it for like fun, like Carlos uses it for cooking classes. They have classes for everybody that can take you from beginner to pro, alongside a supportive community that you can chat about your projects with. It is fall into creativity season. So turn your I want to do this into I made it happen. And you can do that with Skillshare by clicking the link below. And the first 500 people to click that link below in my description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Whatever your hobby is, or your side hustle, or even just your general work, or your favorite secret artistic talent, you can get started today honing your craft. Just go ahead and click that link below. And thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. So let's see how this book did in writing characters that are highly specific. We have a Mask Talk guy stalking a trauma nurse. Those aren't costumes. Although the mask is technically a costume, but they are still people. He's still a person underneath that mask, and that's important for liking the story, for actually making a readable story. Because I'm not just holding up little puppets and being like, now act out this scene. Like, I want to feel immersed, and part of how you do that, especially in something that doesn't have magic, in something that's a contemporary setting, is by making characters that I am walking alongside with that feel authentic, because people are not costumes. So let's see how this book writes characters with such specific attributes. Let me give you the synopsis so that you're kind of aware of what this book looks like. Trauma nurse Allie Capalucci doesn't need any more kinks. She likes the one she's landed on just fine. To her, nothing could top the masked man she follows online, unless one of those men was shirtless, heavily tattooed, and waiting for her in her bedroom. She dreams about being hunted by one in particular, of him chasing her down and doing deliciously dark things to her willing body. She never could have guessed that by sending one drunken text, those dreams would become her new reality. Josh Hammond has spent his life avoiding the limelight, but his online persona is another story. At night, he posts masked thirst traps for his millions of fans to drool over, but one follower has caught his eye, Allie. After reading a comment begging him to break into her house wearing a mask, he decides to take her up on her offer. I'm already laughing. I'm reading the synopsis, and I'm already laughing. This does not bode well. Together, Allie and Josh live out their darkest fantasies, unaware that Allie has captured the attention of someone else, someone with far more sinister intentions than a little light stalking. As Josh turns from predator to protector and the stakes heighten, he must ask himself how far he's willing to go for the woman he's obsessed with. This is the first time I'm reading that synopsis. I went into this completely blind. What a choice. What a choice I have made. So let's talk about the trigger warnings. And if you remember my review of Butcher and Blackbird, I was pretty mad about the trigger warnings because trigger warnings are not a joke. Trigger warnings are an allergy list. They are there to help your audience decide if they cannot handle something in your book. If you want to be cutesy, write an author's note that's cutesy. If you want to help your audience by using a trigger warning list, don't turning it into a joke. That's gross. I don't like it. Stop doing that. So let's take a look at this one and compare them because there are some similarities. Trigger warnings. Lights Out is a dark stalker rom-com with heavy themes. Reader discretion is advised as this book contains sexually explicit discussion and scenes, including anal play, alcohol consumption, mention of, in parentheses, off-page rape, child abuse, specifically remembered, medical content, blood and gore in a hospital setting, discussion of mental health, mention of serial killers and their crimes, limited description of a mass shooting, stalking, invasion. Oh, invasion of privacy. Sorry. Invasion! Like aliens? Home invasion, hidden cameras, hacking, theft, unintentional cannibalism, in parentheses, remembered, death, car accident, remembered, description of a violent death, remembered, death of a parent, breath play, knife play, gun play, fear play, primal play, mask play, consensual, dubious consent. So number one, I want to say that I am so appreciative that I did not have to click a link and go to the author's website to read this, because in case that's inaccessible to me, I'm in a place where I don't have Wi-Fi. It being in the book helps me decide at the time that I am reading whether or not this is a good book for me. Number two, I want to say unintentional cannibalism, in parentheses, remembered, is so much better than accidental cannibalism, tee-hee, and sorry about what I did with that cookies and cream ice cream from Butcher and Blackbird. What the fuck were we doing there? I was so pleasantly surprised by this trigger warnings list. Nothing in here is a joke. It's clearly laid out and even tries to give context in parentheses so you know whether or not it's a situation that you can handle that particular topic. Whoever worked on this trigger warnings list, if it's just the author or if like beta readers were involved in this, you have my sincere thanks for taking it seriously and doing what a trigger warnings list is supposed to do, which is essentially serve as an allergy list. In an allergy list, if you've never looked at them, at least in the United States, how it works is it says whether or not it contains dairy or eggs, right? But it will also say this product, even if it doesn't contain dairy or eggs or peanuts, this product was made in a factory that does process those things on the same line. So while like your, I don't know, chocolate chip cookie might not contain any of those things, it was on the same line as other products at one point and in a factory that has other products that do contain those allergens. And some people are so allergic they cannot eat anything that even has it in like the same room. If even a tiny little sliver of peanut ends up in their product, they could go into anaphylaxis. My mom is like this with almonds. So my mom has to know if it's made in a factory with almonds, right? Even if the product itself does not contain almonds. So when we do a trigger warnings list and we say like specifics like that, when we say, well, it doesn't contain cannibalism, but it does contain accidental cannibalism, where somebody accidentally was fed another human. And we don't make it into a joke, we just lay it out as fact. That is helpful. Because if I don't necessarily want to read about cannibalism, like there is in To Be Devoured by Sarah Tantlinger, that is cannibalism, right? Nope, that was eating animals. That was eating animals like a vulture. Never mind. What's a book that contains cannibalism on purpose? I can't think of any right now, but Book A containing cannibalism, where it's like, you know, active and intentional, versus a person accidentally eating another person, is different. And it doesn't need to be a joke. You can just say that. This book did, and I want to give credit where credit is due. The dedication reads, "For everyone brave enough to ride the handle." I assume that means like on a bike, like a motorcycle, and not like on a bicycle, which also dangerous. I have had to tell my kids, please don't do that. Chapter 1 is in Allie's POV. This is dual POV, and the audiobook, which is on Everend, does have it dual narrated just like Butcher and Blackbird. So no matter whose chapter you are in, if Josh is speaking, the guy narrator is speaking and Allie is speaking. But if it's in Josh's POV, Allie is still doing her own lines, just like Butcher and Blackbird. So it's very similar in experience that way. Oh my God, it's freezing in here. I'm like Ariana Grande with those sleeves. I'm wearing Gross's sweater. I'm so cold. So our main character, Allie, is working in the ER, and she comes across a newer nurse who's having trouble. It's like her first night or her first week, and it's talking very much about how her experiences in the like the trauma unit are different than the ER in other hospitals. Some people did just fine in normal ERs, but cracked when they came here. We were inner city in a metropolis known for its sky-high crime rates. Not a shift went by where we didn't see the worst of the worst. Stabbings, rapes, gunshot wounds, abuse victims, survivors of horrific car accidents, you name it. Tonight had been especially rough, even for me, and I'd seen so much shit that very little rattled me anymore. It could be scarring for someone new to a trauma center like Brindley. So her and the other nurses are like, hey, you know, have you talked to the therapist? Or has anybody told you that we have therapists? They're on the 3rd floor. And if you're on night shift and you need to talk to somebody, there's a 24/7 call line. So it's really setting up very quickly that her being a nurse is very important to the story. Whereas in a lot of books I've read, nothing about the character is actually important to the character. It's just sort of there to try to convince you that this is the author trying to make a real person and not. An instance where a character was a nurse, rather she I think was a nurse practitioner or trying to be, was in Ugly Love, and it was completely irrelevant to the story. Same with the love interest being a pilot. None of this stuff was actually relevant. It was just there, which is typically, you know, in Colleen Hoover books. So it's nice that every book is not a Colleen Hoover book. Wow, what a sentence. It's totally normal to break down a little afterward. All that adrenaline built up too high and your cortisol levels probably went bananas. There's no shame in disappearing into a miniature stress coma. I still do it too on really bad nights. So they had a stressful night. She's consoling the new nurse. Then she goes home to her house where she lives alone. My house wasn't much, just a small 2-bedroom craftsman style cottage in a semi-safe neighborhood, but it was all mine and I was damn proud of the work I'd done fixing it up and putting my unique stamp on the place. So now we have a character who is a trauma nurse, has been there for a while, consoles other nurses, and she has her own house. She goes home and she is greeted by a ball of fur. He must have been fast asleep on my bed, and when I walked in, because his yowling started farther away and then rose in pitch and volume as he raced towards me like an ambulance screaming down a hallway. If you have cats, you know. So she picks up her cat, she holds her cat. My mom called this fur therapy growing up. She'd come home from a long day of work, and before saying hi to Dad or me, head straight to a cat and snuggle them until they started to squirm. It always made her feel better, so I'd done the same thing to Fred since the day after he showed up in my yard. On principle, I didn't trust anyone who didn't like cats. They'd never be around to judge me anyway, is what she's... the judging part isn't important. What's important is she doesn't trust anybody who doesn't like cats. And you know what? I already like her. This could go downhill at any moment, but she has a point in her favor for being a cat person. I too don't trust people who don't like cats. What do you mean you don't like cats? Why? You could have a valid reason. Maybe they all weren't nice to you. Maybe one scratched you when you were a kid. But the people that tell me I just don't like cats, red flag. The people that tell me, well, they don't pay enough attention to me, they're not like loving all over me like a dog is, I'm like, cats are particular. Cats aren't allowed to be particular? Why is that a red flag for you? So she's trying to decompress from work because she's a very high-stress job as a nurse in a trauma unit. So she's scrolling through TikTok, and she's scrolling through all kinds of stuff, specifically thirst traps. Specifically, thirst traps of men, this is a quote, wearing some sort of mask. My obsession with them started at the beginning of autumn when this subgenre of videos rose to the spotlight every year thanks to horny book lovers and lusty lurkers like me. And the one that she really likes to watch is a guy whose handle is the.faceless.nurse. man. Oh, I had a whole favorite section devoted to his videos, and I routinely went back and rewatched them whenever I needed a distraction after a bad shift. And she's like, man, I really need to get laid. It's been a while. I should text, somebody, but nobody's going to be into mask kink, but maybe this guy I used to sleep with, Tyler, maybe he'll wear one. And they had been hooking up on and off for a year. They're not serious. They're just, friends with benefits. So she texts Tyler and says, I have 2 days off starting Friday. Want to come over and bring a mask like this? I promise I'll make it interesting for you. And she sends him a screenshot of the faceless man to Tyler. And he answers saying, damn girl, you still alive? I thought you ghosted me. It's been 2 months. Pass on the mask thing. I'm not into it and I'm seeing someone anyway. And she's like, bummer. So chapter 2 rolls around. And it's in the POV of our love interest, Josh. Why are you already laughing? Get it together. Do your job. Well, he is the roommate of Tyler. And he hears Tyler bring up Allie, this girl he used to have a, sexual relationship with. And Josh is like, super casual. She's an ER nurse, right? I already knew the answer to that. I hate doing the voice already. I need Natalie to come in here and do the voices for me. I already knew the answer to that, along with several other facts like her address, where she'd gone to nursing school and what kind of grades she got, and what her current work schedule was. Normal things people knew about the roommate's ex-hookups. Oh no, he's a stalker. I don't hear from her for 2 months, and then look at the shit she sends me. Oh fuck, it was happening. The day I dreaded since starting The Secret. It's his profile. He's the faceless man. Josh is the faceless man. My online life was colliding with my real one and I was about to be found out. And Tyler doesn't pick up on the fact that the faceless man has the same tattoos as Josh, which we're gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. So he hadn't looked at the picture too closely, because if he had, he would have recognized the tattoos. My tattoos. And he met Allie when she was hooking up with Josh. They only met the one time. What? No, Tyler. When she was hooking up with Tyler, they only met the one time. And he didn't want her to see his face, because when I see myself, all I can see is Ariana. Sorry, this is crazy looking. When he met her, he didn't want her to look him in his face, because I couldn't risk her seeing my face for too long and starting to wonder who I reminded her of. I looked too much like my goddamn father, and that Netflix documentary had just come out about him. It would have been my luck that Allie had seen it. Everyone wanted the exclusive interview from George Marshall Sutcliffe's surviving family, and he had actually got into hacking when he was in high school because he wanted to help him, his mom, and his stepdad, I believe, disappear from the internet, and I learned everything I could in pursuit of making that happen. So this is all actually really interesting character stuff, and I was very shocked by this, because I refuse to read Haunting Adeline, but I have watched so many reviews of Haunting Adeline, and one thing I noticed is how poorly constructed the characters are. If you know a person, then you know what their motivations are, and you typically can guess how they are going to behave in certain situations, right? Who you are, what you do, the context of who you are informs what you do, right? So that is not typically true for dark romance. It's just a bunch of books where I'm bad and she's hot and also often a virgin and I want to defile her and I'm a bad guy, but I do bad things to even badder guys so that I can hook up with her, and it's really stupid, right? This is already not that, and I'm very surprised. I'm waiting for it to go downhill, because it's really interesting to me that he got into ethical-ish hacking because his dad was a serial killer. So color me a little bit interested. Sue me, okay? And this actually genuinely feels like it was written by a trauma nurse. So if the author was a trauma nurse, it wouldn't surprise me. Whereas you can tell that Colleen Hoover is not a nurse when she writes her main character as a nurse. So now Josh works for a Fortune 500, he works for an exclusive cybersecurity firm writing code that kept other hackers from infiltrating Fortune 500 companies. And he notes that his dad was a terrible person, a serial killer who got away with his crimes for so long because he targeted marginalized women. He was handsome, and he could put on a good show for short periods, just long enough to convince the sex workers he frequented to get in the car with him. So we are not romanticizing serial killers right off the bat here, which is a good sign, but he is a little bit creepy, which is the pull for the dark romance. He's creepy, but only for me. That's the fantasy that's playing out here, right? And while this is not for me, I can see how it can be for somebody else. It's just that we are always going to be teetering on the line of, is this all right, I can see why somebody is into this, versus, oh, now I have the ick, I don't understand at all. which is where I am at with Haunting Adeline. Right now, we're sitting on the line. Like, I'm good. I can understand why this is hot to people so far. And he's like obsessed with Allie, but doesn't realize that Allie is also obsessed with his persona online. She'd been in my house, the one sanctuary I had left. The need to protect my identity and keep Tyler and me safe was strong enough that I did FBI-level research into anyone Tyler invited over. Thankfully, he understood my compulsion and told me ahead of time when he planned to have company. So he's looking through his comments and he's like, wait, so she's obsessed with my online profile. Maybe she's in my comments, and finds her profile that says, her profile's name is Allie Oxenfree. Holy shit, was it her? He's like, wait, I can't do this. I don't want to lose Tyler over a woman. But then he's looking at her comments and she says things under his videos that say, I'm on season 6 of this video. Fuck, that's funny. It's actually really funny. It's good. You got me, Nevessa. But then she says, boom, there went my ovaries. Ovaries jokes never do it for me. Instantly not laughing. Unless it's about like ovary pain, but not like I don't understand equating ovaries with feeling horny. Like whenever something happens to me that I'm like, there's something happened with my ovaries, it's typically I have an ovarian cyst. I just don't equate that with being horny. I don't know, maybe I'm built different. Like literally, I'm built with cysts. So he is like really, really into her. He's obviously lightly stalking her a little bit, but clarifies, I wasn't turned on by the idea of seriously hurting Allie, so maybe I wasn't as far gone as I'd feared. So his time in this book is spent worrying that he's going to be like his father. So his father was a bad guy. He acknowledges his dad was a bad guy. He hates his dad. He doesn't want to be associated with his dad. He doesn't want anybody to know that that was his dad. He doesn't want women like trailing after him, hoping that, you know, he will tell them more about his dad. He doesn't want to have any sort of conversation with anybody about his dad other than Tyler, who knows who his dad was because Tyler knew him growing up. But he worries because he does have certain kinks and he's like, where's the line? Which is a really good question. Where is the line? So he decides to break into Allie's house. Because she's left him comments saying she wants him to break into her house and, you know, she's like really into him. But she's never actually talked to him because he doesn't follow anybody. He doesn't talk to anybody. He just makes these videos on his Mask Talk account and then, you know, dips. He says, I wouldn't have to worry about her desire turning to terror beneath me because with my face hidden, there wasn't any risk of that. For once in my life, I could be free of the fear of discovery or recognition. That thought turned me on as much as Allie did. But then he's like, wait, how, again, where's the line? Was this what it had been like for my dad? Did the same thrill drive him on as much as his more sadistic desires? So breaking into her house, an unholy yowl split the air. And he tells her cat, okay, listen, don't fuck with me. But he doesn't want to hurt the cat and he thinks the cat is cute. So he's a cat person. So like point in his favor from Allie, we assume eventually, right? This book does talk about like psychopathy and sociopathy. I don't know. I know that those are highly stigmatized disorders and I know that there has been more and more discussion on how we portray them and how we talk about them and whether or not we are furthering stigmatization. I'm not sure if this book does that or not. I think that it talks about it in a way that it might, not in like trying to be harmful, but basically being like, you know, I feel like I might have some sociopathic tendencies. I'm not really sure. I don't have one of those disorders, so you would have to have this book run by somebody who does. I would hope that if we're going to talk about it, this had a beta reader who has one of those disorders, but I'm not sure. Just warning you that this book might be triggering if you are a person living with those disorders. It says most sociopaths were capable of caring for a few select people. They were their rare exceptions, developing intense love and devotion for them while feeling absolutely nothing for anyone else. I cared about my mom, stepdad, and Tyler. So he thinks that he is a sociopath. So he goes and breaks into her house and he films a video in her house and sets up a camera. It was time to find out just how serious Allie was about wanting to walk into her house and find a masked man waiting for her in the darkness. Then it switches to chapter 3 in Allie's POV, and she had a really rough day at work. It was nights like this that made me want to quit. I'd gotten into nursing to save people, and every single death felt like a personal failure. I think that this is very true for people who work in healthcare. A lot of my friends are nurses and they grapple with this quite a bit. So I appreciate that like her being a nurse is not just a thing that's like in the background. Oh yeah, I forgot she has a job as a nurse. It really affects her day to day. She gets home and she's already feeling kind of froggy because lust is a natural response to traumatic events. It says there was something on my bed that I hadn't left there. There was a mask on my bed and not just any mask, his mask. Then it switches to Josh's POV. I think it rewound time a little bit. So he's watching her because he did set up a camera in her room, which obviously is, you know, inappropriate, but we're playing out this fantasy of like, what if, right? Nobody should break into another person's house without their consent and set up a camera in their room. That's inappropriate. I can understand like wanting to play out this fantasy in your head, right? The invasion of privacy was bad enough without adding sexual predator to my list of crimes. The reason I put the camera in her room was to gauge her reaction and learn whether or not she meant what she said in all her comments. Was she actually into the same dark shit that I was, or was she just a tourist? I'd been so excited about the prospect of living out our shared fantasy that I hadn't stopped to consider things from her perspective. What would it be like for a woman living alone to realize a stranger had invaded her home? And then he hears her talking to Fred, and he's like, oh right, Fred is her cat. My jealousy deflated and I unclenched my hands from where they had a death grip on the arms of my computer chair. Wow, okay, this knee-jerk rage was new, and probably not a good thing. I'd have to keep an eye on it. I might not want to hurt Allie or her cat, but the thought of another guy in there with her had sent me straight into kill him with knives. And he realizes that different thoughts he's having, he's trying to rationalize what he had done and lessen his own guilt over it. And he's trying to parse out like, okay, am I like my dad? Do I want to hurt women, or am I just into like fear play? And he thinks, I should have argued with my therapist when she said it was time to wean me off the antipsychotics. Clearly they'd been necessary if one of the first things I did once they were out of my system was start stalking someone. This might sound completely insane. She finds the mask and she was going to masturbate. Well, she finds the mask on her bed and she messages him on his Faceless Man profile and says, this might sound completely insane, but did you break into my house tonight, film a video on my bedroom and leave a mask behind? Because she realizes that a video that he posted is in a room that looks exactly like hers, and then realizes the mask on her bed proves that he was in fact in her room. And he answers, what would you do if I said yes? I asked. There. That seems safe enough. And she's like, okay, what are your intentions? And he's like, my intentions? Oh, Allie, why would I tell you what they are when your previous comments have led me to believe that fear is half the fun for you? And she says, how can I trust that you won't hurt me? You can't, Allie. I'm a stranger on the internet. It was slightly reassuring that I still had some morals. Allie might be masturbating to a video I'd sent her, but she hadn't consented to me watching her do it. And he's like, that is probably wrong. Chapter 5 is in Allie's POV. He was the hottest thing I'd ever seen, and he'd somehow noticed all the thirsty comments I left him out of the thousands he must get on a daily basis. It made me feel special, seen, chosen. This wasn't just a passing fancy for me. It was my ride or die fantasy, and the fact that I might be living it out made me feel more alive than anything else had in months. But I wasn't stupid. My years working as a trauma nurse had taught me this was much more likely to end in tragedy than anything else. Thank God that she put that in there, because I'm like, but you're a nurse. You should know that safety is paramount, being a trauma nurse. And she's like, well, okay, I'm conflicted. Is this inappropriate? It feels inappropriate. He shouldn't have broken into my apartment. But also, do I call the cops? If I call the cops, what do I say? Why didn't you call us immediately? Sorry, I was too busy diddling myself instead. And also, I'd asked for this. I wasn't blaming myself. I had literally begged for it to happen. At one point, I'd left a comment offering him money to break in and wait for me in the dark. How would that hold up in court? So then she talks quite a bit about how her job she picked very specifically, and how she, deals with a lot of trauma just working in trauma. And they warn you about this, about the sky-high divorce rates at the hospital, PTSD diagnoses, addiction issues. But I hadn't listened. I'd been too naive and headstrong. No one had been there when my mom needed it. And I couldn't let what happened to her happen to anyone else if there was something I could do about it. So we start getting hints that she chose this job for a very particular reason having to do with her mother. And now she's really dead set and is very headstrong and is like dedicated to her work, even though in a lot of ways it's very harmful. It's a very difficult job to do. So as she's dealing with this guy comes in, and one of her ways of coping is getting it out through sex and sexual fantasy. She gets a message from the Faceless Man. What had he said? Did he send another video? And why was I so desperate to find out when I should be blocking and reporting his ass? It wasn't another video, just two simple, heart-stopping messages. Sleep tight, Alyssa. He knows her full first name. What the hell do I say back to him? Get your ass back here right now, you monster. You can't leave me this turned on. How had he found me online? He must have known my name and what I looked like if he was able to pick me out of his comments, because I told no one, absolutely no one, about my mask kink IRL. And I wasn't friends or following anyone I knew personally on my account either. What happened after he found me? How had he gone from figuring out who I was to learning where I lived? I had no idea what skills were needed to hack my phone or if it was even possible. Wait a minute. Wasn't Tyler's roommate a computer genius? Could he answer my questions? Oh, bitch. Oh, no. Right into the belly of the beast. Chapter 6 is in Josh's POV. I was 26 years old, and so far, I'd gone all this time without hurting anyone. Did that mean I might never hurt someone? So he's still like deliberating, like, man, I'm like really into this like fantasy. This girl's also into it, but then I did some stuff that's like illegal, and I'm kind of like into fear. Is this me being my dad? And then it talks about, and again, I think that this is kind of like a red flag, the McDonald triad, which is an outdated but sometimes eerily accurate prediction of violent tendencies in a person. But like, if it's outdated, why put it in the book? I hadn't hurt Fred, the cat, the other night, or was even tempted to, so I was starting to feel more confident that I had in a long time, that I wasn't going to snap one day and turn into my father. Okay, so he had broken into her computer, and he's like watching her, and he's like, you know, they're like playing cat and mouse, and which, you know, I'm traumatized from listening to too many reviews of the Haunting Adeline, where he's like, run little mouse, oh shut up, oh shut up, die, leave the earth forever. He sends a camera detector to her house so that she can like look for cameras, which is kind of like a slap in the face since he set up a camera in her house. Watching her had been fun and was a fulfilling a surveillance kink I didn't even know I had until now, but it'd be even more fun if Allie decided she wanted to be watched, so she can decide whether or not to keep the camera if she finds it, right? And he's like, if I'm the cat, what does that make you? And she says, I'm a motherfucking wolf. So on the one hand, she's like turned on by this idea. On the other hand, this could be a dangerous guy. And both of them know this, and they're both like, oh, I don't really know what to do here. Both of us aren't really bad people, but like, how do you approach this when you have a kink and I've already broken into your house? Oh shit. It's kind of fun. It's a little funny. He decides to put up a video where he's like laying on a window, and like it's a sad caption. It's like, when she doesn't text you back or something like that. And his entire comment section is, forgive him, you monster. What's he like in real life? Are you dating him? So this is what jealous rage feels like. How does it be the most hated woman on the internet right now? If you don't want him, I'll take him. So she's at work, and she's like, is he watching me now through the hospital security cameras? Probably not, but just in case he was, I flipped the bird at one in the corner of the break room. My phone chimed with a text message. I pulled it up to see an unknown number and a single word, rude. How obsessed did someone have to be to go this far? And so she's mad at him about the post, and she says, you knew damn well what would happen when you liked it. Oh, he didn't tag her. That's right. She commented back on it, and she's like, well, maybe if you weren't such a dick or something like that. And he liked the comment, which he never does, and then followed her. And everybody sees that he's following only one account, and they're like, it's her. We have a little bit of like cringy language here where it says, you knew damn well what would happen when you liked it and followed me. He says, I have no regrets about publicly claiming you. Claiming me? Oh God. And she thinks, no, vagina, don't quiver at that. Damn it. Not you too, ovaries. And I'm like, oh no, I'm cringing again. Come on, go back to when it was funny. But it says, my torment must have shown on my face because he texted me. Just tell me to stop, Allie, and I will. But she does not. So when she gets off work, somebody is there to pick her up. Someone was sitting in the driver's seat of her car, a large someone wearing a hoodie that hid their face. No fucking way. So he sends her a message because he doesn't want her to hear his voice, and says, I thought I'd give you a ride home. The weather is shit. You must be exhausted. It's not safe for you to drive right now, because she's been up at work for a really long time. And he's like, please don't mace me. She says, you're in no position to give me orders. He said, I'm just giving you a ride. I saw what you went through at work, saw how dead on your feet you were as you started to pack up your things. I thought I should come. I pinched the bridge of my nose, debated, screaming for help. And she's like, why would you think that you should come here? And he's like, well, you didn't tell me to stop. She's like, well, I was interrupted at work by a goddamn tragedy. There was a shooting that the shooting victims came into her work. And he's like, okay, say it now then. And she's like, just because I've gone stupid enough that I can't say it right now doesn't mean I'm getting in the car with a man who broke into my house and filmed me without my consent. He says, okay, look in the passenger seat. You will have all the power. And he leaves her a gun and a knife. He can just message and be like, hello, my name is Josh. Would you like to play Mass Kink with me? But I guess that would like ruin the fantasy. I don't know. I'm trying to rationalize why they're doing it this way, but all right. He leaned back, pointed to them, and then at me. My entire life was devoted to caring for others. I wanted someone to take care of me for once. And she's like, he did show up after I had a bad night at work. He wants to drive me home so I don't crash my car. I do have a gun. All right, fine. Chapter 8, she says to him, it's in his POV, but she says to him, you can just show me who you are and drive my car like a normal person. I already know we met before, and it can't be easy to see in that thing. And he's like, I did give her a gun, but it's replaced with blanks. I'm horny, not suicidal. Stop it. She does have a real knife though. And she tells him, you're gonna have to do better with one sappy video if you want me to forgive you for watching me without my consent. All this time you've been trying to reassure me that I'm safe with you, but did you ever stop to consider whether or not you were safe with me? Allie and her villain air, I would bankrupt myself for front row tickets to that show. I don't like it. It's cringy. And she's like, you know what, actually, I kind of want to blow you. Are you STD free? I nodded. I'd gotten tested a few weeks ago and hadn't been with anyone since. You wouldn't lie to me about something like that, would you? And she's like, do not deviate from the directions home. I will give you a blowjob. You have to drive me home. While she's going down on him, he does accidentally deviate from the directions. Bad boys don't get rewarded, she said. No, goddammit, I did not need a brat kink on top of my newly awakened praise kink. Those two were supposed to cancel each other out, not act as amplifiers. Sir, good God. Except she still had the knife in her hand and she accidentally stabs him through the hand because she was getting really into blowing him, but wanted to make sure she still had a weapon in her hand. So she just stabbed him through the hand while she's blowing him. So after, he finishes, she realized, oh my God, I stabbed you in the hand. You're going to need stitches. Chapter 9 is in Allie's POV. Jesus, take me now. I had stabbed a man while giving him head. You sure did. That is a thing that you just did. We are all very shocked by that, ma'am. I was an RN. Suturing was considered minor surgical operation, and our state, like many others, didn't allow RNs to perform the procedure. You needed to be an advanced practicing nurse to do it. If anyone found out I'd broken the law, I could get in a lot of trouble, maybe even lose my job and get fined. The reality of a kinky hookup was proving to be a little different than the fantasy I'd harbored for so long. First off, I'd been the one with the knife, and secondly, it included snacks. Yes, he brought her snacks, which objectively is kind of cute. This is definitely a fantasy because only in a fantasy would a hot stalker man and shows up in a mask in your car to drive you home so you get home safely also bring you snacks, which she ate before she blew him. The only thing that might up the ante was finding out who he was on the sly and keeping it to myself. The thought of turning the tables and breaking into his house to place my own set of cameras so I could taunt him back was almost as thrilling as getting fucked by an anonymous stranger. Y'all are way kinkier than me, I tell you what. Was I simply overworked, or was this genetic? And darkness had lingered inside me for years, waiting for the chance to come out and play. Anyway, so she's at her house, she goes to bed. The faceless man had left leftovers in her fridge for her to eat, which is very nice. It says, gee, I wonder who could have done such a dastardly thing. Your hot stalker man who you stabbed through the hand, lest you forget. And he shoveled the snow at her house. She texted him saying, have you ever heard the word boundaries? And he says, doesn't sound familiar. Can you use it as a sentence? I'm not gonna lie, I am into sarcasm, and if a man was sarcastic to me like that, I don't know, I might be down. Actually, if you've ever watched any videos with me and my husband sitting here talking about books, me saying that just made a lot of sense to you. I married the man with the driest humor on earth, and I love him. He's the best. Simultaneously, she gets a text from Tyler who said, hey, by the way, Josh says he's free to help you out with whatever computer thing tonight if you want to come by. Chapter 10 is in Josh's POV, and he tries to hint with Tyler like, hey, are you cool? By the way, like he's trying to figure out if Tyler's okay with him being into Allie. And once he figures that out, he says, excitement coursed through my veins. That was one less hurdle I had to jump, one less obstacle to overcome on the road to making her mine. Oh, slow down there, bud. I'd kept my injured hand hidden from Tyler, but that wouldn't work with Allie because I needed both of my hands to type. I bet I was already on her list of suspects. I was an obvious ad because she'd met me and I was good with computers, so I'd have to be crafty if I wanted to ease her suspicion. I am so relieved that this book isn't being like, well, the most obvious answer, it couldn't be him, and I won't even think about it for a single second because that really would have pissed me off. So he puts on fingerless gloves. Oh, yeah, that'll for sure throw her off the scent. So she comes to his house. Tyler's not there. She shakes his hand and she's like, really squeezing his hand because it's really obvious that she does have him on the suspect list. And he says, quite the grip you got there, trying to intimidate me into keeping my mouth shut about all this, whatever this is, like whatever illegal computer shit you're trying to get me to do. But the thing is that he's hot and she's reacting to him being hot also. I knew the effect I had on people. Up until now, I'd always resented how handsome I was because it reminded me of how easy it must have been for dad to lure his victims. Which this is kind of funky because later in the book, she has to tell him how hot he is. And he's like, why do people react to me that way? And she's like, because you're hot. It's because you're hot. But like earlier in the book, he knew it. I don't know. She says, please don't judge me for what I'm about to show you. And she shows him the faceless man. And he's like, okay, so you want me to find this guy for you. And you're not some rabid fangirl trying to find out where he lives, right? Because stalking is a crime, Allie. You dick. It's a long and insane sounding story, and I don't want to get into it with a near stranger. I'm just a little worried this ends with me getting charged as an unwitting accomplice in somebody's murder. It's my murder you should be worried about. Was she serious? She still thought I might hurt her? I mean, yeah, it's kind of still up in the air, my guy. Like, sure, you shoveled her driveway, but you also broke into her house. You have like knives and guns. It's a little concerning. This guy's been messing with me a little in mostly a harmless way. I'd like to get back at him. So he creates like this fake thing to like, you know, put in and try to make it look like he's looking for the guy and trying to find, you know, information. It looked like something out of a spy movie, but in reality it did fuck all. I wasn't really going to sit there and track myself down, but he's not going to have an answer for her by the time she has to leave for work. And he's like, hey, what's it like being a trauma nurse? What made you want to get into it? And she says, my mom, but I don't want to talk about it. Sorry. And she, at the same time, is testing him by texting the faceless man. And he set up a program that auto texts her stuff that like actually makes sense in context. And it literally says, mwah ha 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 ha. My evil plan was working. And I'm like, oh, you made me cringe again. Come on now. Step 1, get Allie to drop her guard. You're like a dream come true. Step 2, fuck her on this couch. Oh wait, no, I skipped a few steps somewhere. Repeat steps 1 through 3. Okay, that's a little funny. Like, it's a little funny coming from him because I don't hate him like I hate Zayd from Haunting Adeline, but it's a little funny coming from Josh because he's not as bad in context. So he tells her a little bit about his background. He says, my dad wasn't a good man. He tried to find us when my mom and I left him. So learning how to hide us from him online was the reason I first got into like coding and hacking and all that. They play Would You Rather, which was actually quite cute. Like, they by themselves already have chemistry, which was nice because I'm glad that we're not just doing like it's her and the faceless man who's stalking it, but like actually putting them together was quite smart. Because they do have chemistry like on page together when it's just Allie and Josh and not just Allie and the faceless man. Credit where credit is due. And she's quite funny and she's making him laugh playing this game. It was cute. He also gives like the audience, not Allie, but the audience a little more background where how his dad's crimes affected him and how he really wanted to separate himself from his dad so that everything he did wasn't under a microscope because his high school girlfriend had gone missing for 5 days in the summer after graduation. She was just gone. She didn't tell anybody that she had gone on an impromptu road trip with her best friend. Didn't let anybody know. And by day 2 of her being gone, he was in a jail cell until she came back home and was like, oh, I'm fine. I just, you know, went on a road trip. But his dad's crimes make it so that he is immediately suspected of wrongdoing. In chapter 11, the first thing that we hear in Allie's POV after she leaves Josh's house is, Josh was the faceless man. I didn't know how I knew it, but I did. The second he opened his apartment door, that certainty hit me like a punch to the gut. He'd already been near the top of my suspect list. I'd met him, he was good with computers, and he had the right body type, but seeing him in the flesh confirmed it. And I'm like, oh, thank God this bitch isn't stupid. I was really sitting here thinking, she's gonna be like, no, it couldn't possibly be Josh. There's not a single thing that him and the faceless man have in common. Why did I just use a Mickey Mouse voice? I didn't even know I could do that. Gee, Donald. Wow, I'm actually quite good at that. I have to tell Carlos when he gets home. His reaction's gonna be like, wow, congratulations. Aside from these suspicious as fuck gloves, something in his manner reminded me of the faceless man. He'd been so concerned and sincere when telling me that stalking was illegal. But she's like, still a little part of me is unsure. So next time I get the chance, I'm getting a tracking device and I'm slipping it into one of the faceless man pockets and seeing where it goes. And she's like, Josh is really hot though. When he smiled, it triggered ovulation. If you bring up your ovaries one more time, I'm gonna throw up. Ah, shit, too late. My ovaries donned their war paint and started metaphorically chucking eggs at the man. I'm done. I don't want to hear any more ovary talk. If I cringe any harder, I will cringe into non-existence. If Josh were the faceless man, that meant I might get kinky sex, witty banner, easy conversation, and even a new gym buddy all in one. Yes, please? Now, first of all, I don't like the yes, please, but the rest of it is true, and I love that for her. So she decides to go home and test whether or not the faceless man will show up by masturbating. She was literally like on her vibrator when the dude bust into her house, and now he's about to bust into her. An unholy bang echoed through the house. I was just lifting off the vibrator when I heard Fred let out his welcoming yow. He didn't do that for anyone but me and the faceless man. A deep guttural voice broke through the silence. Oh, I forgot I have to read the sex scenes. Oh no. Okay. I'm not gonna laugh. I'm not gonna laugh. No, Fred. Mommy and Daddy need to have alone time right now. I'm sorry, I tried. He looks at her and he says, are we doing this? So we're asking for confirmation. We're making sure that this is not actually a stalker assaulting somebody. Good. He didn't have to explain himself. Doing this meant finally playing out our shared fantasy. Yes, I said. No safe words. You want me to stop? Just say so, no matter when, no matter what I'm doing to this greedy little. Oh, great. The word greedy popped up. It's a sexy book when the word greedy gets brought into the conversation. Chapter 12, Josh's POV. We played out our shared fantasy of a masked hookup sans knife because in my haste to get here, I'd left it behind like an amateur. See, I appreciate that he has amateur moments. It makes it feel more real. It makes it feel like a real man who's like, ah, shit, I was so horny I forgot my knife in this mask fantasy I'm playing out with this real nice lady. He notices that she slips a little spy device into his pocket, and he's like, well, I'm gonna have to drop it into a river next time. So this book leans pretty hard into the kink of orgasm denial. So if you are into that, this book is for you, because that's what plays out here, where she's like, if I don't finish, I'm gonna fucking pass out. I'm gonna die, actually. Anyways, I'm not gonna read it, but he makes her finish, and he says to her, I'm gonna find some way to next time make you come even harder. And she's like, is that safe? And he says, only one way to find out. Are you in? And she says, fuck it, yeah, I'm in. This is consensual. All of it is consensual, which I really appreciate, except the stalking. But I will say he is going to apologize for that later, which honestly I appreciate. So I'm just going to say this now, since we're farther into the video, so YouTube's not going to penalize me for it. I gave this book 4 stars. I know you're all shocked. I don't think that this is half bad. I think that it's good enough for a dark stalking romance. If you're gonna do it, you might as well do it like this. Is it perfect? No, I have a couple issues with it. Some of the banter is a little cringy. If I have to hear about her ovaries again, I'm gonna scream. But my God, after all I've been through on this channel, Butcher and Blackbird alone was so disgusting to me. And if it was like this, I would have liked it. So anyway, that's my secret. I secretly gave this book 4 stars. And it's not like that I'm attracted to these people. It's not like I read this because I have these kinks and I want to play them out. I just read anything, and I could like anything. But you have to do things where I'm not this doesn't make sense, this doesn't feel right, this feels ethically wrong. But I think that if you're going to write about stalker and mask kink, this is as close to, this is as good as it gets for me personally, to where I can say I enjoyed the book. And there is more plot coming, so stay with me because we're only halfway done. But I figured I'd tell you now, because if I tell you at the beginning of the video, YouTube's like, you liked a book? Ugh. We're not showing that to anybody in the algorithm. Fuck you, bitch. He ditches the tracker, and she's really annoyed, and she says, I bet you're real proud of yourself right now, Josh. Because she knows that it's him. You think I don't know who you are, but I do. None of your bullshit threw me off. In fact, it did nothing but confirm my suspicions. I tried to do this the nice way, beat you at your own game, but fuck it. You're not playing fair, so neither will I. Guess what? I plucked a few pieces of your hair off your sweatshirt while rubbing your back yesterday, and if you think I'm not going to DNA test them against the bloody bandages stashed in my freezer, you're dead ass wrong. So she's gonna prove it's him. Now, is she really threatening to turn him in? No, but this is all really part of the game they're playing. Chapter 13, she goes to the lab at the hospital. I don't know how accurate this is, but she goes to the lab at the hospital where she talks to Veronica, the tech at the hospital, and she's like, I need you to run these and see if they're a match. He texts her and says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how mad are you about the tracker? She says she's at a 3. She needs a few days to regroup and form her next plan of attack. But also she thinks about the fact that he cooked her breakfast, which was really nice of him. Although apparently he can't cook it because the bacon was still raw in the middle, and I stopped eating the eggs after the 3rd piece of shell I had to spit out of my mouth, but no man was perfect. And it turns out that he is actually not able to cook that stuff well because he's vegan. And I'm like, finally a book with a person who's vegan where we're not shitting on them for being vegan. Again, Colleen Hoover could never. She realizes, oh, he's starting to think that he's actually really crossed a line with me or offended me or pushed me into doing something sexually that I hadn't been ready for, and I've been evasive, so that makes sense. And he's like, I'm gonna be honest, I've been watching you for a lot longer than you've been watching me. Oh, wait. And she says to him, I've been watching you a lot longer than you've been watching me. I'm worried that this is only kink fulfillment to you. And he says, it's not. And he posts a video where he's he does some shit on his account where he's basically obsessed with her, but he doesn't reveal her identity or anything. And of course the comments are full of hilarious shit where it says, okay, but how are you gonna tell your wife that this video just got me pregnant? I wonder if this author just went into the actual comments of mass talkers and just pulled stuff that she saw there. Carlos and I, we don't get a lot of time to hang out and go do stuff, so half of our time together spent is just hanging out watching TikToks together. but half the fun of them is we watch funny TikToks, but then we go into the comments and read the comments to each other. TikTok comments are comedy gold. So at this video, again, she brings up her ovaries. I hate this. This alone lost like a quarter of a star. I could feel my ovaries back at it again, opening the floodgates and screaming, go, 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 as they released every single egg in my body. If I had sex with this man in the near future, we'd have to double up on birth control. I wish you had erased that sentence. My pager went off and I was glad for the excuse to get out of there before the next kink I developed was a breeding one. Stop it! So there's a guy at her work and he's there for help, obviously. He is a patient. And she's like, he looks vaguely familiar. And she's talking to the other nurses who she's like, she really doesn't have, she spends most of her time at work. So all of her friends are her coworkers, which makes total sense. And she's like, he looks familiar. And her coworkers are like, yeah, that's the rapist from the other night who got away with it. Why isn't he in jail? Didn't he get caught in the act? There was no evidence. He got away with it, essentially. One of the victim's brothers tracked him down in a bar after seeing a Snapchat, and he got beaten up by the victim's brother. So he's back and getting help. And she's like, I'll take care of it. Yesterday, I learned to punch somebody's windpipe in my martial arts class. So I've got this. She takes martial arts class, which I think is really cool about her. But then it says, up close, he had the same eyes as the suspected serial killer that she had seen in a documentary. They were dead and alive and wholly inhuman. I knew with certainty that I was looking into the eyes of a predator. So I don't like this because I don't think you can tell somebody's a serial killer from their eyes. I just don't think that that's true. I mean, that's how Ted Bundy got away with it, is they're so charismatic. You cannot possibly, if that were true, then we would just use that. We would just use that to find serial killers. It's him. He has the dead eyes. That's not how that works. And I just feel like that's kind of cheap and lazy. And his name is Brad, by the way, which of course it is. Part of me almost hoped that Brad tried something so I could learn how far Josh would go, because she knows Josh is watching her on the cameras, and how far I'd be ready to go with him, because if he went after Brad, there was no way I wouldn't be along for the ride. Brad said, did my chart tell you what happened? That man stalked me through social media so he could attack me from behind at a bar. Good thing there were so many witnesses and the cops were close enough to make a quick arrest. I tried to tell him it was a misunderstanding and his sister had been more than willing, but he wouldn't listen. I should have expected something like that from her. She wasn't a high-quality woman, if you know what I mean. You think she would have been grateful for the attention of someone with my pedigree, but instead she turned around and accused me of attacking her. And she's kind of blowing him off, and he tries to grab her. So jumpy, you must be afraid. I forget what she does, if she I don't know, yells at him or what, or maybe she slaps him, I'm not sure. She gets in trouble with HR though. He asks for another nurse. He's complaining, whining, she attacked me or some shit. And she explains he's fucking crazy. I'm not being ableist, I mean that literally. I might not be a therapist, but there's no way that man doesn't have ASPD. So I don't think that's how we're supposed to talk about ASPD. So I don't know, maybe that's one of the reasons why this book didn't get a 5. It almost did, but I think that the way that it talks about those stigmatized disorders is probably not appropriate. And she's having a really rough night. After she goes back to work, after HR clears her to go back to work, they take her side. There were some issues with certain kinds of victim of car accident. Specifically, all I could see was Mom looking at me from the passenger seat, blood pouring from her mouth as she tried to speak. I can't, I said, backing away from the gurney while my coworkers rushed in to take my place. I can't. I was 16 again, sitting uselessly beside my mother as she died, my hands covered in her blood while I tried to staunch the flow. So then we're in Josh's POV in chapter 14. Bradley Bloom. He had the same eyes as my father. Did he? I don't think that that's a thing, y'all. Allie, used to working in such a dangerous environment, was probably better than most at recognizing monsters and realized she was in the presence of one. There's lots of people that give you the ick, but I don't think you can actually tell from somebody's eyes if they are a serial killer. He wanted to go to the hospital while he was watching all of this go down, and he's like, I wasn't ready for our game to end yet, but also what was really stopping him was the potential fallout when he told Allie everything about himself, because he's afraid that when she finds out that his dad was a serial killer, that she won't be interested in him anymore. So he had watched her talk to Bradley Bloom, the suspected serial killer / rapist. It says, she looked slightly deranged, so of course my dick chose that moment to enter the conversation. I didn't even try to stop my body's reaction to scary Allie, because goddamn, watching her go full bad bitch on Brad was fucking hot. If she actually hit him, I might come. So it was at this point I'm thinking, oh no. If this book turns into, because the front of it says the couple that slays together stays together, if this turns into them doing Joker and Harley Quinn, I'm out. I'm not going to like this. I'm going to hate it. I don't like that. I didn't like it in Butcher and Blackbird because you are playing with morality and you are not explaining how you are doing these mental gymnastics. It feels very cheap. So I was really worried at this point that that's where this book was going. And I put it down for like several days because I'm like, I'm going to be so mad if that's what we do here. So he sees that she is distraught at work after the stuff with Bradley and after new patients come in with certain wounds. And he's like, you look rough. Don't go home like this. Take an Uber. And she's like, okay, I will take an Uber. And he makes her, he makes a key to her apartment and just walks in. He's like, I should probably, make sure she has food, but she doesn't really have anything. I didn't really love the idea of frying more bacon. It brought up memories of when Dad got an ingenious idea for how to dispose of his latest victim during a now infamous 4th of July neighborhood cookout. I'd been vegan since, and even now, almost 20 years later, the smell of sizzling meat still made me want to puke. So I'm like, if you are going to write about serial killers having their victims be cannibalized, I'm glad that it wasn't like, it was presented very matter-of-factly. That was not a joke. Like, his dad fed his victim to other people and now he's vegan as a result. Like that makes sense. And I just appreciate the way that was written, as it's not a joke. So he talks to her. He's like, what happened? It couldn't have just been Brad. And she's like, it was my mom. He's like, I thought your mom was dead. And she's like, you're so nice sometimes that I forget what a creep you are. She's like, I killed my mom. And he says, I thought she passed in a car accident. Well, she was teaching me how to drive and operate a manual transmission. It was our first time out on a real road. She thought I was ready. I almost stalled. I panicked. The car jerked forward, slamming my foot down, and I only missed the brake. I hit the gas and we shot into the intersection. The truck driver managed to hit his brakes at the last second, but the impact was still hard enough. All our airbags deployed. She was in so much pain, it took her a moment to notice the pipe sticking out of her mom's chest. It came loose from the truck during impact and impaled her. And so he's thinking he doesn't really know how to be there for her. Why wasn't there a better way to verbalize empathy in moments like this? Some way to say that you were sorry that encompassed how your heart broke for someone and how you do anything you could to take their pain away. There was a car accident tonight at work. The woman looked like mom and I just lost it. I couldn't treat her. And she's like, it just feels like it's my fault that my mom's dead. And he's like, well, would you tell another 16-year-old that it was their fault that their parent died? And she's like, no, I guess not. And she's like, so what about Bradley? He's like, I looked into him and it looks like he has many victims and his victims have been getting paid off by his very rich family since he was a teenager. He's like, what set you off? Like, why did you go after him? And she's like, oh, well, he said that his victim had wanted it and was only out to get his money. And so he thinks about this. Sometimes I still worried that there was a risk of being overtaken by urges that led me falling down a dark rabbit hole and becoming a monster adjacent person like Dexter or Joe, someone who did terrible things but found a way to justify them to themselves. And I'm like, oh, you didn't actually need to name drop the other the other people. Like, I know the other media. I got it. I don't need you to remind me of them. Don't handhold your audience that hard. We're adults. And he's like, watching you beat the shit out of him would have been the hottest thing I've ever seen. She's like, I'm having a really rough night and I would like to have really dark sex. Do you know what you're asking for? I know I trust you enough to put myself at your mercy. And they have this agreement that's no safe words, but their safe word is just stop. Like, stop is also a safe word. And so he stabs a knife onto her mattress and says, I want to watch you ride it. If I had a nickel for every book I've read this year that had somebody riding a knife during sex, or having sex with a knife during sex, I'd only have 2 nickels. It's just bonkers that it's happened twice. The next chapter is in her POV, and I'm really appreciative that her immediate thought is like, well, she's still a nurse, so she's like, oh, I could get hurt doing this. And if it didn't hurt me, then I could still have a risk of infection or slicing myself open. And he says, if you think I would ever let something happen to that perfect, you are not paying attention. So he does a alcohol wipe on the knife. And then, we get the typical spicy scene language that says, you should see the way you glisten. You taste incredible. He teased my entrance. The word entrance always gets used. His tongue laved at my sensitive bundle of nerves. It's the same jargon in every single sex scene. I would have rated this higher if the sex scene had different language in it, honestly. They're not bad. It's just I wish that those typical terms had been swapped out with something else. This belongs to me now and I protect what's mine. She has an orgasm on this knife, and then afterward, she just has so much built up, pent up feelings from everything that's happened with seeing someone who looked like her mom and everything that happened with Brad. She bursts into tears. She says, this is such awkward timing. He's like, no, it's perfect timing. One release triggered another. Let it go. She thinks to herself, why did I think I didn't get to have good things? Was it because so much had been taken from me at too young an age? Dad passing from a heart attack only months after mom died in the crash? Was that when I'd stopped letting people in and started pushing them away, only proving to myself that everyone eventually would leave? So it makes sense how small her circle is. She only surrounds herself with work friends. She asks him, hey, are you staying? And he's like, do you want me to stay? And she's like, I feel really raw and overexposed, but maybe he needs to hear me say it because all he's done so far is just show up uninvited. And she says, yes, I want you to stay. So I think that the communication here is really good after like, yeah, it's wrong to break into somebody's house. Even if she said, you know, I'd pay you to break into my house. I think that we're doing this in a way that feels like it just feels very, out of all of the things that I've read in dark romance, this is the one that feels like the absolute least problematic. Like I feel like if we're going to do a wrong thing, at least we're doing it as right as we can, I guess. Chapter 16, Josh, he hears something and he says, I think someone's trying to break into your house. He's like, you need to stay here. He moves his mask up, gives her a kiss, and he goes to check and he's like, you know, you need to get your gun because she has guns. And he's like, you need to go get your gun, stay in this room, do not leave this room. And he realizes that somebody is in fact at her front door picking her lock. Gee, I wonder who it is. Friend of yours, Josh? Just kidding. No. Bad joke, sorry. So the guy breaks in and he punches him in the face, which makes him knock out. Allie comes out and he's like, I told you not to come out here. She says, take his mask off, and they take the mask off and it's Bradley Bloom, the serial killer rapist from the hospital. He's like, if you shoot him, you will wake the whole neighborhood. Someone will call the cops. And she's like, fine, we'll beat him to death quietly. I know somebody who can dispose of a body. And Bradley in his bag has a knife and rope. It's very clear that he came there to assault her, rape her, and probably kill her. And realizing this, Josh thinks to himself, God, I was a fucking asshole. Brad and I might not have had the same intentions, but we both had broken into Allie's house, and I hated the idea that I'd cause her similar distress. What had I thought to myself less than 2 weeks ago? That I would never regret what I'd done? They agree that Brad needs to die, but they can't be the one to do it. They're like, all right, we'll drop him off at his last victim's house. Her extended family lives outside the city on a big farm, and between her ex-Army father and her ex-Marine husband, I'm sure they'll do the rest of the work for us. And I'm like, you know that military people are normally like normal people? Like they don't just go around killing people, and you shouldn't like expect that of them. And she's like, all right, what if they call the cops instead? Won't he be able to identify us? And he's like, well, he hasn't seen either of us. So if he survives, you know, he's not going to be able to say it. And even if he does, like, well, he broke into your house. So what's he going to say? Oh, I broke into somebody's house and then they left me here. And he tells her, hey, I'm sorry that I did this to you. And she's like, you didn't do this to me. And he says, I literally did. I was just as ready to shoot you as I was Brad, but after that, I never felt like you wanted to hurt me. This is illogical and dangerous, and God, it is, but something in my gut told me to trust you. And he says, it was the snacks, wasn't it? I'm like, damn it, don't be funny. Don't be funny. And on the way to them dropping Brad off, he's in the trunk. They're driving. They're like, he's thinking like, how is she going to trust me when she finds out who my dad is? Why would the son of a notorious serial killer cover himself in blood and film knife-wielding thirst traps? She probably assumed I idolized him when nothing could be further from the truth. Well, they get to the house, or they get to the property that they're going to drop him off at, and they open the trunk and he's dead. You put the duct tape over both his nose and mouth. He's dead. So he realizes what he's done. He's accidentally killed this guy, and he rips off his mask, runs into the bushes, and starts puking. And so Allie walks up to him and goes, probably a bad time to gloat over the fact that I was right about your identity, isn't it? Reader, I puke laughed, said Josh. I've also laughed a couple times in this book. Not there, but other times. In Allie's POV, it says, here I was driving back to the city with a queasy killer and the corpse he'd created. God, I bet you're wondering how I ended up here. She's like, how are you? He's like, definitely not in the middle of an existential crisis. You? She's like, well, I think that his death was too anticlimactic. He's like, I can't believe I just murdered someone. And he said, she says, I think technically what you did classifies as involuntary manslaughter. The worst part is I don't even feel bad. What do you mean? I'm freaked out that I killed someone, but beneath that, I don't have any guilt over it. I'm more fucked up over not being fucked up, if that makes sense. She's like, well, we did make the world better by removing Brad from it. I know vigilante justice is problematic as fuck, but sometimes I think it's necessary, especially when the system put in place to deal with men like Brad fails because it's susceptible to loopholes. Because Brad has been getting away with killing people because he's rich. You asked me if I would ever blame another teenager for killing their parents. Let me turn that around on you. If it was me who'd accidentally killed Brad, would you be wondering if I was always meant to be a killer? Because he's wondering, like, was I like predestined to be this? And he said, no, it's not the same though. This is something I've worried about since I was a child. And she's like, what do you mean? Are you a criminal? He said, well, I'm a hacker. So technically, yes, I've broken countless laws, but the worst thing I've ever done was break into your house and stalk you. And she's like, well, that's all I need to know. I trust my gut that you're not a bad person. Anything you have to tell me can wait until you're ready. No rush. And he says, you're the best girlfriend a guy could ask for. So he just made them official. And she's like, oh my God, am I your girlfriend? I feel like disposing of a body is a boyfriend-girlfriend activity. Are you saying the couple who commits homicide together stays together? He snorted. 2 words. flirty. I prefer the couple who slays together stays together. That's why it's on the cover, because they accidentally did manslaughter. And she hints that she has some uncomfortable things about her family that she doesn't really want to tell him. Allie, nothing you could say about your family would ever drive me away. Okay then, my uncle Nico is in the mob. He says, pull over, we're breaking up. I like that. And she mentions that her family and her don't really talk. Her mom didn't really talk to her brother Nico, but her dad said if I ever got into serious trouble, I should go to my uncle. And she's like, we have a dead body on our hands. We don't know what to do. I think I have to call in my family. But there'll be a cost. It could be money. It could be favors. They've already asked me before to get my cousin Greg a job at the hospital. And he's like, I guess I should officially ask you before we get into, the mob. Do you want to be my girlfriend? The position comes with snacks and orgasms and maybe a little light stalking, Rachel. And she says, yes. Ah, nothing like a dead body to bring people together. So they go to her uncle's house and he's like, you brought a body to my house? I might have feds watching me. And she's like, well, this guy came into the hospital. He broke into my house. We accidentally killed him and now we have his body. And Josh is like, I'm worried that there's going to be stuff on his computer at his house leading the police back to Allie and making her a suspect when he gets reported missing. And so they devise all this plot to clean Allie's apartment of all evidence, go to Bradley's house. By the way, they're doing this over macchiatos because Nico makes an incredible macchiato. While this is happening, Allie gets a phone call. It's from, what's her name? Veronica at the lab. And she says, did look into it to see if I can find you any more information. And the DNA database we use, it says that the contributor, so the DNA you gave me, shares 50% of their DNA with the Ken doll killer. So whoever you just gave me blood of is the child of the serial killer, the Ken doll killer. So now she's panicking. She's like, she's at his apartment because they took her to his apartment while they took him to go to Bradley's house to go hack into Bradley's computer. Oh my God, he filmed himself covered in blood. Did he want to be his dad or something? Was he already like his dad? Was all this girlfriend, boyfriend, father to my cat talk just to butter me up to get him to trust me so that I'd be all the more horrified when the real him came out to play? This was the dark past Josh didn't want to tell me about, and I understood why. What had he said about the worst time to tell me being right after he killed someone? Tyler, his roommate, who she used to hook up with, is home, and she goes and asks him, since she's already there, do you know who Josh's dad is? Why do you ask? Because some of my questions are harsh, and I don't want to hurt his feelings. Oh, and he's like, well, why are you asking me and not Josh, first of all? Some of my questions are harsh, and I don't want to hurt his feelings. So, yes, he knows who Josh's dad was. No, he's not his dad. He does have some quirks. One time I forgot to tell him I was staying out for the night, and he showed up at my hookup's house at 3 o'clock in the morning to lecture me about it. You have no idea what kind of nightmare he escaped from. It's made him a paranoid recluse. It's been even worse since that documentary came out this summer. And she's like, well, the Ken doll killer, his dad has different eyes. They were that weird dead alive combo, like the other killer I'd met, like Brad's, with none of the warmth and humor I regularly saw from Josh. And I'm like, there's just no way that is the test by which we know somebody's a serial killer or not. Josh has to know things, Allie. Feeling safe is important to him, and keeping the people he cares about safe even more so. If you're gonna be with him, you'll have to accept that he doesn't give a shit about normal boundaries.
Put that sentence back in your mouth!
My car is a GPS tracker that he put there the day I drove it off the lot. I have location data turned on my phone so he can constantly check up on my whereabouts. It's nice having someone always looking out for you, like your own personal guardian angel. Josh is the kind of ride or die you could go to with a body and he'd help you hide it. She says, what else should I know? And he says, he's vegan. And she's like, but he cooks bacon at my house. He goes, he must have it bad. I've never been allowed to cook meat in here. His dad stirred one of his victims into hamburger patties and fed her to our entire neighborhood at a block party. That kind of thing sticks with most 6-year-olds. And she says, yeah, I get it. No more details, please. So that was, again, the accidental cannibalism that gets brought up in the trigger warnings. So she realizes, okay, this is him playing out a fantasy that is also part of catharsis for him. She tells Josh, I understand why you do it. You wear a mask, you cover yourself in fake blood. You're doing the same thing I am, trying to rewrite history, as in the history of her mom dying in an accident. I try to save every patient as if it might somehow make up for what happened with her mom. And he's like, I don't know, I feel like I'm into fear, like he is. It's hard to explain, but those moments when I catch you off guard and watch your eyes flash wide with fear before bleeding into desire is what turns me on. And he's like, well, I guess it's fine because I don't really want to scare you. It's about that flip from fear to desire, because I like it when you stop being afraid and start being horny. And he says, I have no regrets about stalking you. And she says, me neither, which you might want to have a little bit of regrets. So they couldn't go into Josh's house at the time. Him and the mob people that she's related to because the police were already there. They were there to serve a warrant related to the assault that he had already gotten away with. I don't remember. Josh explains like in his POV in the next chapter that it was really helpful that they had that conversation about the difference between him and his dad. He was always worried that I wasn't safe, that a ticking time bomb loomed inside my mind, and once I reached some unseen point, it would go off and boom, I'd become just like my father. My mom and stepdad had tried to tell me that wasn't true, so did Tyler, so had my therapist. It wasn't until Allie that I started to think they were telling the truth, and no, it wasn't because meeting the right person at the right time magically healed me. I'd been warming up to the idea for a while. It also explains that Allie's like her kinks that he and her have been exploring also have a lot to do with her traumas. She's not submissive outside of the bedroom, but she is submissive inside the bedroom. She needed someone else to take control. She craved feeling safe and protected just as much as she wanted it rough and dirty. Then they have a sex scene that this language is just super not for me. I need this. It's yours. Take it. Claim it. Don't hold back. You don't know what you're asking. Yes, I do. F me, Josh. F your girlfriend. Oh my God, please stop. I held her in place with my teeth and my branding her, my fingers tormenting her. Everything about this is making me want to die. And afterwards it says, I need to pick up the morning after pill. I thought you said you were on the pill. Not that I minded if we had an accident even this early into things. I never regret bringing a miniature version of this woman into the world. And don't ask me why I knew our firstborn would be a wild child little girl. I just did. I am, but my ovaries can't be trusted around you. Stop saying ovaries. I'm begging you. Stop saying it. I hate it. And she's like, man, I thought we would have sex again. He's like, your just milked me bone dry. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm dying. Help. Chapter 21 is in Allie's POV. Her mob cousin, Junior, shows up and he's like, we need your boyfriend again to hack Brad's computer. And she's like, he's not going without me. Her cousin, Junior, also says, by the way, for us doing this favor for you, my dad's stipulation is that you regularly come to dinner with the family. His payment for this is dinner once a month with the family. Am I being Gilmored right now? Yep, he's going full Emily on you. I'm like, no Gilmore Girls references. So she refuses to not go with the team of dudes that is going to break into Brad's house. So they're all in the van together and Josh is trying to make these dudes laugh and they are like, you know, just made of steel apparently. And he tells one of them, I'll pay you $10 to laugh at my next joke. I need to win a bet against my girlfriend. And I thought that was actually really funny. They break into the house. Allie's supposed to stay in the van. Of course, she's not going to stay in the van. They recognize the scent in the house is a decomposing body. I don't remember why, but the rest of the guys leave and it's just Josh in there and a car pulls up and it's actually Brad's parents. So he's hiding inside of Brad's office where he's already deleted everything, every trace of Allie from the computer. And then Josh breaks in to like the alarm system and sets off the alarm, which brings in the police. So now the police are there and the smell of rotting bodies is there. So now they get to enter the premises and the police have been looking for a reason to enter the premises anyway. Josh is upset with Allie because now she's broken and promised to stay behind twice. And he's like, I'm going to punish you later. I hope you can handle the consequences. But when he was exiting the house, he had to sneak out and he fell and he hurt his ribs. And it says, to quote one of my favorite TV shows, everything hurt and I was dying. And I'm like, are we quoting Parks and Rec right now? So she's like, I need to check your wounds. They're on their way home. They were kind of like chased by the cops a little bit, but Junior picked them up. They were on their way home and he is like, oh, you seem kind of jumpy. And she's like, yeah, well, you threatened to punish me. So they fall asleep. But when Allie wakes up, there are black silk cuffs around her wrists and the ropes binding them led straight to my headboard. I need to be able to trust you. He spanks her. He's like using a vibrating plug on her. There's like penetration and, you know, there's the typical sex scene language. Let me feel that perfect choke this. And what's interesting about this scene is I think it does a good job of explaining like how there's almost a moment where she's like, wait, is this actually Josh? Because there's such a huge difference between the faceless man and Josh. And she like knows it's him because it's his tattoos, but like that's half the kink for her is feeling like it's somebody else, but she is perfectly safe because it is still her boyfriend, but she wants to feel as if it's not. Later on, they go back to have dinner again with her family. Her uncle is married to her Aunt Moira, who is in the IRA also. Anyway, they have dinner. They explain the cops didn't find any trace of you guys. You are for now in the clear. Her uncle Nico is like, I don't trust you. And Josh is like, I could undo your entire organization because I'm a hacker. So you should stay on the right footing with me. Like, don't fuck with me. And And then she tells Josh, I also have a kink about being like chased down in a forest and so the epilogue is them doing that. It says, another thrust and Josh was hilt deep. It felt like he was close to hitting the back of my teeth. Okay. And it says she was about to have my favorite kind of the brain melting, spine buckling, knees shaking, titties bouncing, soaking cervical orgasm. What's a cervical orgasm? Is that a thing? I don't want to Google it because I'm not going to Google that. Is that a thing? Does your cervix orgasm? I don't fucking know. And apparently the sex is so good that she blurts out to him, marry me. And he says, what? And then she's like, oh man, I can't believe I said that. And when she turns around, she realizes he's holding a ring. He says, will you marry me so I can spend the rest of my life chasing you? They're like, I thought people got married because they wanted to stop chasing. And he's like, not me. She says, not me either. So they go back to their cottage where they had planned this whole like, I'm going to chase you down in the forest and fuck you thing, which is good for them. And the place is covered in toilet paper because their kitten that they got trashed the place with toilet paper. Okay, that was Lights Out by Nevessa Allen, which as far as dark romance goes, is the best I've read so far. Certainly miles away, way better than Butcher and Blackbird. My God, I cannot believe that Butcher and Blackbird gets all this praise, but this book isn't getting more of it. This is way, way, way better. Way better. So if you're going to choose between these two books, I cannot highly recommend that you go the Lights Out direction rather than Butcher and Blackbird. I mean, Butcher and Blackbird, like, bare minimum, the scenes simply don't make sense. The things that we're doing don't make, like, why did we, I'm still mad about that first kiss scene where it's like, we're gonna leave this victim in the basement because we fucking hate serial killers, but fuck the victims too. Our morality doesn't make any fucking sense. We're gonna go over this place, even though the serial killer is gonna come back to the basement, we're gonna go make out over here, and then, what are we doing? You guys are supposed to be smart. You're outwitting the FBI repeatedly, and yet you guys are so stupid. But these people, like, actually made sense. These people actually made sense. We had conversations about the kinks that we're doing, the morality, the bad choices we're making, how, what sets us apart from other people doing bad shit. It made sense. There's, cringy lines, and I don't think that the way we were talking about sociopathy is probably correct and probably needs to be corrected. But the rest of it, the bar is low, and I'm pleasantly surprised because I really thought that this was going to go a very, very different direction. So 4 stars for Lights Out by Nevessa Allen. I don't know that I could read another book by this author because if it's not as good as this, I'm going to be like, see, I never read any dark romance that's good. All of this is just the same thing over and over. I am begging authors, though, to use different verbiage in your sex scenes. You guys all sound exactly the same. Like, if you put them up against each other, I don't know who's who because you guys are all sounding exactly alike. Okay, thanks for watching. Leave your comments and questions down below. If you do like dark romance and you have one that sounds similar to this, if you could leave some recs down below, I would be super appreciative. Okay, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye. And before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Ashley H, Astra, Astrid P, Brittany Bobitney, Call Me Kodiak, Choco's Trash for Japanese Mysteries and Thrillers, Chris the Horror Therapist, DJ Rocktopus, EK Casey, Ellie, Aaron with 2 E's, Eric GalaxyBot, Jess, John E, Julie D, K, Kaleno K, Casey McKenzie, Kate W, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lictor of the Undying Josh, Lictor? Lichter? It can't be lit, can it? I don't know. Lady Chips, Lemon Jelly, Lily B, Max B, Min B, Mommy Zombie, Alice, Panoramic Demon, Peggy Luhu, Rain, Ree Mirage, Reese, SJ, Samar, Scarlet, Shiny, SMK, Spoopy, Steph B, T Delegati, 2 Orbit, Urchin Audrey, White Raven 13, Zorvictia, and Chai Guy. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. And last but not least, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my potato starch Marxists, and those are AB Daniels Anaki, Alejandra, Alicia Herbie Derby Do. Alicia, what did you change your last name to? Althea, Amanda D, Andy, Angelica, Armadildo. Armadildo. What are you guys doing? Artie the Ninth, Ava, Ballads and Bookends, Beck, Blake Lemon Pants, Blythe, Bookish Brainrot, Bookish by Jenna, Bree, Kate B, Caitlin, Cardinal Ginger, Carlin, Carly, Casper, Kate W, Catherine, Kathy, CJ, Claire Online, Colleen, Corwin, Cosmic, Darius, Danielle, Darren, Desiree Michelle, Dilf Enthusiast, Dorothea, Drive-By Thinker, E.T. Cosgrove, Ebby, Emily A, Emma, Emma Kingsbane, Ezra Moon, Fiona, Francis, Gadarn, Hannah Bunny, Hannah C, Harpy Kuro, JM Tennant, Jay is on Olympus, Jelly V, Jen Michelle, Genderqueer, Jenny G, Jessa Sue, Jill, Jojo Bookish, Juicy Wizard, Kat, you guys are killing me, Catherine, Katie L, Kaylee, Kayala, Kendra, Kitten, KMTV, Laughing Cat Dog, Lauren G, Lazarus Ray, Library of Scars, Lindsay M, Lisa B, Lisa L, LP, Luciri, Lustful Octopus. Oh man, that reminds me of that Kraken book I just read the other day. Martin, Maddie Moen, Madison, Man-Eating Plant, Marquita, Megan, Malara, May, Mima Who, Molly, Never, Nicole G, Nicole R, Nimeska, Nyan Binary, Paige P, Paul, Penelope G, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Pondemonium, Queen Cereal, Rachel B, Reba, Rebecca R, Ronnie, Rosie Thorns, Rowan, Sikoria, Saintbringer, Sakia Lume, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Sarah Z, Shamed, Shannon, Sean, Sisette, Sophie, Talia, Tiana, Trashcan Teddy, Triple M, Tito Phoenix, Wobbs. It says Wobbs. I am going to need you to tell me how to say that. It's WHAABZ. Is it Wobbs? Help me. Writer A and multi-level marketing scheme with a W. Oh my God, you guys kicked my ass today. All right, thank you.